Joining us now, Victor Davis Hanson, Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution, and Dinesh D'Souza, author, filmmaker, and host of the Dinesh D'Souza podcast. Victor, Eric Adams won the Democratic primary in New York, he's a liberal guy, but he ran on a fairly pro-law enforcement platform, at least for a Democrat. But he's the exception in the party right now.
Yeah, he is. And every one of those issues that you mentioned, Laura, crime, inflation, the border, critical race theory, racial relations, China, polls, Democratic polls, insider Democratic polls show that Biden's not polling 50%. And that should tell us something. The only one that he is on COVID, and that's because he just inherited the Trump Operation Warp Speed, didn't touch it, plagiarized it as his own. And had he done that on the other issues, we had a secure border, we were starting to really make progress in getting back without printing more money, we wouldn't have had inflation, he would have been okay. And then the three things that he's trying to use in lieu of being popular on the issues is what? That he's not Donald Trump. But I think people look at his cognitive issues, his challenges, and they're thinking, you know, I'd prefer him not, I'm more scared of the president being Joe Biden than being Donald Trump. And that's starting to have a shelf life. The same thing with COVID, that for all the hysteria, the virus is waning. And they're pretty much, as you hinted, they're stuck with January 6th. That's all they have left. And the narrative has completely crashed. And I'll just finish by saying that these aren't just issues, Laura, that if you are not safe, or you're in Union Square of all places in San Francisco and they're looting in a high-end Neiman Marcus and there's no consequences, or you're paying $5 a gallon for gas or $100 a sheet for plywood, and you can't even know, you have no idea who's at the border when you're being told that COVID is still dangerous, and yet 2 million people are going to come through in 12 months. That's not a sustainable civilization.
Yeah,
I think in the midterms, people are going to say, you know what, this can't go on.
Well, tonight on MSNBC, Dinesh, Joy Reid had a, well, rather interesting yet predictable take on the founders.
The theft that has undergirded American society. It has been for so long accepting the bland narrative that lionized these founders as sort of a bedtime story rather than confront the real pain that's in the history.
Dinesh, that's queued up perfectly for you.
Well, I would cite the example of Frederick Douglass, the runaway slave, who certainly knew something about the real pain and gave a kind of what appeared initially to be a denunciation of the 4th of July. He stood before the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society and he said, you know, what to the slave is the 4th of July? Are you mocking me by inviting me to be here? But it's very interesting to follow the trajectory of that speech, because as it moves along, Frederick Douglass kind of turns and then says, well, look, the Constitution, the founding, they are not implicated in these crimes of slavery. In fact, Douglass called the Constitution the scaffolding, kind of like the scaffolding of a building, which is taken down once the building is completed. So Douglass described the Constitution as a gloriously anti-slavery document. So it's critical race theory. It's people like Joy Reid who want to tell only one side of the story, as if racism was baked into the American DNA. There is the racist side of the story, but they miss the emancipatory tradition represented by Frederick Douglass, who, after all, was also a lifelong Republican, who said the Republican Party is the ship and all else is the sea.
And Victor, the contrast between the way the media cover China's nationalistic pride and the way they cover patriotism of their own country is stunning. Okay, I was away last week. Hannity was teasing me about it, but I was away last week. And I'm reading Reuters. They're previewing the 100th anniversary speech from President Xi in China. And they write, as the party has strengthened under Xi and the room for public dissent has narrowed, public discourse has become increasingly nationalistic, with many Chinese expressing pride in the country's achievements, crediting the leadership of Xi and the party. So their pride, Victor, is fine. American pride, not deserved.
Yeah, China reads the left like a book. They know every chapter and verse of the left's mind. They pose as sort of this non-white, diverse country that is a victim of discrimination and historical racism by the United States, but especially the left likes them because whether it's a green agenda or mass transit or high-speed rail or dense living, they can enact change by fiat. And they like that use and abuse of power because basically they don't like democratic discussion. Progressives never do. They feel that they're platonic guardians. They're going to talk down to us if they just had the power and they would have the efficacy and the quickness to get things done. That's why they admire China. Just this week we heard Charles Munger, praise the Chinese crackdown on Jack Ma. And that is in line with what Michael Bloomberg has said and Bill Gates when he told us how well China was doing, right in the midst of their lives.
Yeah, Berkshire Hathaway board member, I believe, Charlie Munger. Correct, Victor? I think I have that right.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking as a true multinationalist globalist. Victor and Dinesh, thank you.